One of these things I tell young parents whenever they mistakenly ask me for advice, like I know what I'm doing, but I have two sons, 12 and 14, and I warn young parents, your children, not because they're bad, because they're human, they're going to test you. For instance, in my home, when I put my sons to bed. Boys, go to bed, school night, that kind of thing. My sons have over time tested me, and I have failed. And this is how they do it. I'll put them to bed, and I'll tell them, hey, I don't want to hear any goofing off tonight. Lights out, go to bed, got school tomorrow. And then 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, I'll be trying to wind down, and I hear them giggling, laughing, stomping. And I go up there, and I burst in the door, and I can't keep a straight face. I try to yell, try to get them back to bed. I think it's funny I can't keep a straight face. Well, they're not stupid. They pick up on that. And so now they virtually never go to bed first time. They have to wait until second or third time when they can tell I'm serious. Stress tested me. I failed the stress test. We don't like to think about this when it comes to nations, but nations do this to each other all the time. This is the entire history of the world, a stress test. Now, what are we talking about? I'm sure you've seen the video by this point in time. The Chinese spy balloon traversing clear from Alaska to the eastern seaboard finally got shot down. Okay? This is highly embarrassing for the nation. And we'll get to the why here in a second. But China, keep in mind, the military knew about this spy balloon long before you found out about it. You really found out about it because people started looking up and seeing it in the sky. Oh my gosh, put this on Instagram. And that's the reason you really found out about this whole thing. But you wouldn't have known otherwise. The military knew about it days ahead of time. Days ahead of time, the military knew about it. They talked to Joe Biden about it eventually. Keep in mind, they hid it from Joe Biden for days too. Joe Biden orders, or says, who knows if you can believe him or not, he lies about everything, says he ordered them to take it down.
Briefed on the balloon. I ordered the Pentagon to shoot it down on Wednesday as soon as possible. They decided, without doing damage to anyone on the ground, they decided that the best time to do that was as it got over water. I told them to shoot it down.
On Wednesday?
On Wednesday.
But the recommendation
They said to me, let's wait till the safest place to do it.
So just pause on that for a brief moment. They said to me, no, let's wait for a safe place. The president is commander-in-chief. You know what that title means, right? It actually doesn't have anything to do with political parties or Washington, D.C. Commander-in-chief. You know what that means? That means there is one man at the tippy top of the military high command. Not two men, not a committee. It's actually one guy. And when he says something to anybody underneath him on that little flow chart in the military, when he says something, no one gets to say no in a normal country, the way we are set up, the way we're supposed to be structured. I'm president, hey, shoot it down. No, okay, you're fired, you shoot it down. That's how that works. Except we're not a normal country anymore, we're a late stage republic. And China now has further confirmation of that. So why do you do a stress test if you're China? Why do you figure this out? Well, because we like to imagine this. This is what you like to imagine, and I like to imagine it too. When it comes to spying on each other and intelligence gathering, we like to imagine countries like China, we like to imagine they know everything. Oh, okay, they know exactly how many troops are here. They know these guys are here. This base is for this. This is their troop strength here. We like to imagine they know everything about that, and we like to imagine they know everything about the command structure and the command decision-making. Okay, this guy's in charge of here, he's good at this guy's in charge of there. But the truth is, yes, China knows a lot, and we know a lot about China, but that's not the way intelligence works if you know anything about it. What you get, if you're a foreign nation, because of your various spying sources, what you get are little snapshots here. We think there are 5,000 troops there, but there could be 10,000. We couldn't see anything. We think they have this, we think they have that. And what you can't really ever get, if you're one of these foreign nations, what you can't really ever get is the thought process of the leadership. It's impossible to get it. Your spy can't tell you how the commander-in-chief or the military leaders would respond if you do X, Y, or Z. The only way to find that out is to do a little stress test. This was a stress test from China. That's what this was. China sent a spy balloon to traverse the entirety of the United States of America from Alaska to the eastern seaboard. I still can't even believe I'm saying that. And we didn't shoot it down. We failed our stress test. We already had a horrible test on the world stage with Afghanistan, internationally embarrassed. Now here's China flying fighter jets by Taiwan on the daily, figuring out exactly what are they going to do? What won't they do? Well, if you're China, you're trying to figure out if we're going to aggressively defend Taiwan, and then you find out you can float basically a hot air balloon at 60,000 feet from Alaska to North Carolina. What do you think we're actually going to do about Taiwan? Consider this the final stress test failed. I believe China goes in and probably goes in within months now. Failed again. Oh, and why'd we fail, by the way? Well, there's a variety of reasons. And I think reason number one is probably worth asking. How much of the United States government, how much of the people who lead the country, how many of them are just flat out compromised by China, whether it be financially or otherwise? And that's a totally legitimate question to ask, especially on the heels of the president saying, I told you to shoot down the drone, and his military advisors saying, nah, actually, we're going to let her finish the course. And when you combine that with the fact that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is on record bragging about the fact that he called the Chinese counterpart and told him that he would give him a heads up before we attacked, maybe it's time to start asking if General Mark Milley is actually a Chinese asset.
As part of that conversation, I said, General Lee, there's not going to be a war, there's not going to be attack between great powers. And if there was, the tensions would build up. There'd be calls going back and forth from all kinds of senior officials. I said, hell, General Lee, I'll probably give you a call, but we're not going to attack you. Trust me, we're not going to attack you.
The chairman of the Joint Chiefs is making phone calls, telling his China, that's treason. He didn't get fired, he didn't resign. My goodness, he should be in federal prison for that. And now this same guy told Joe Biden, no, Joe, it's just a spy balloon. Let it go. Shoot it down in the Atlantic. No big deal. Probably worth asking. But what's the second reason? And this really is the biggest reason. How does this happen? Because this is a question I've heard all day long, for days now. How does this happen? How can we allow this to happen as a country? Jesse, I don't understand. Why would they let it get clear east? Why would they let it get clear east? Well, allow me to explain it to you. And this is going to hurt a little bit, but it is what it is. Let me ask you something. What would you have done? Right away. You find out about it when it's in Alaska. What would you have done? Hey, President Jesse, spy balloon up there, what would you do? Shoot it down, right? Probably already said that 3 times at the TV. Shoot it down. I'd shoot it down. Well, of course you would. But why would you shoot it down? Well, the reason is obvious to you. You would look up, you would see a Chinese spy balloon, get confirmation that's what it was, and you would immediately be mindful of your country because you love your country. You love America. You want it to be great. You want it to be safe. You don't want anybody, especially not the dirty Chi-Coms, to come step in here and step on our toes. You would be filled with patriotism and American pride, and part of that would be, no, they don't get to do that to our airspace, shoot it down. This would be a no-brainer for you. It'd be a no-brainer for me. But this is the part you have a hard time understanding, and I have a hard time understanding it too, but we have to understand it. You see, these people, the people who lead our nation, and it goes way beyond the president, the administrative state, much of the military leadership, entertainment, education, media, these people, the people who lead all of our institutions now, they don't look up and see a Chinese spy satellite and have feelings of patriotism because they're not mindful of America at all. Many of them hate the place, but even the ones who don't, they simply don't have that inside of them. There's no love of country anymore. They've been taught that it was evil and horrible for so long. There's nothing there. You look up and you see a spy satellite and you're filled with American pride and shoot it down. I want to credit MSNBC's Chris Hayes for making my point for me perfectly. Chris Hayes said he's digging real deep to try to get himself to care about it. You see, again, I want to credit him for the honesty. You look up and you're filled with patriotism. He looks up, he sees it. You know what he does? He looks at you, and he doesn't understand, why are you guys so bothered? I don't understand. It's just a foreign power crapping on our airspace. Why should that matter to me? It's just America. The leadership of the nation, Joe Biden included, Mark Milley most definitely, Chris Hayes, simply not mindful of the place at all. In a late-stage republic, the leaders of said republic only look at the republic as a place to be looted on the way out the door. All these people just simply look at America as a big bank with the security guards who just all went on lunch break at the same time. We survived the State of the Union. It's kind of boring, isn't it? And kind of frustrating. You sit and you watch and they lie. And they lie and they lie and they lie and they have the bully pulpit to lie. In general, there's not even very much debate, although last night there was some, which was odd. But before we get to Joe Biden and the lies and everything else in the story from last night, let's focus on what was most important last night. Me. You see, if you tuned in to the first to watch the State of the Union, as you should, you would have gotten to enjoy Kelly Cam, like many did.
Winning the competition should unite all of us. We face serious challenges across the world. Or your child gets deadly ill, or something happens to you.
Bop it.
What are you going to have to get money to pay
Bop
for
it.
those medical bills?
Spin it.
Or you're going to have to sell the
High
house
score.
or try to get a second mortgage on it. I get it. Restoring the dignity of work means making education an affordable ticket to the middle class. You know, when we made public education, the children to go to preschool are nearly 50% more likely to finish high school and go on to earn a 2 or 4 year degree, no matter their background they came from. Passing the most sweeping gun safety law in 3 decades that the majority of responsible gun owners already support. Would we stand for the most basic of principles? Would we stand for sovereignty? Would we stand for the right of people to live free of tyranny? Would we stand for the defense of democracy?
I'm glad you enjoyed. We certainly did here. All right, back to what are the stories from last night? One of the more interesting moments that's getting a little bit of play out there was, well, Doug. Who is Doug? Doug is Dome's husband. What's that make him? The second man? I don't know. It's really weird. I'm still coming around on this first man, second man, whatever he is. He's Vice President Dome's husband. And he was hanging out with the real president, Jill Biden, last night, the foremost elder abuser in the country. And man alive, I gotta tell you, there's been all these rumors about tensions between Joe Biden and Dome and how Joe doesn't like Dome and Jill doesn't like Dome. And I'm glad these two could come together. All right. Look, I'm not going to make a big thing of it. It's going to be the end of the world. But how much odd do we have to see from these people before we accept that maybe there's something more there than them just being a little off? And I'm talking about all these politicians, all these DC swamp types. Joe Biden's history is checkered, to put it mildly. Jill Biden and Joe Biden's history is odd. My goodness, we're not even going to go into Dome's history because it's a kids' show. We can't even talk about her escapades. Now, smooching on the lips. We have a really gross government full of gross people. Probably just going to go ahead and leave it at that. All right, let's get on to the real thing. What did you hear? What didn't you hear last night? Well, here's the problem for Joe Biden. Joe Biden has nothing he can brag about. That's just the real truth. He has nothing he can brag about. And honestly, this is his own fault. He surrounded himself with communists. He himself is a weapons-grade corrupt idiot, and he's allowed his whole administration to be taken over by these nutballs. And so they've taken over, and communists have done what communists do. They've destroyed everything they could find, From the border to energy to you name it, they've destroyed it. The value of the dollar, they've waged a war against all these things, the things you rely on, and it's been a very, very successful war. Well, if you're president of the United States of America and your approval numbers are in the tank, and you get all the numbers about inflation and people living paycheck to paycheck, and no one's happy with you at all. At this point, Joe Biden's staring at poll numbers from Democrats who don't want him to run again. So what are you going to do? You got to do something for an hour. Look, you got to give the speech. What are you going to do? Joe Biden's going to do what Joe Biden did. He's going to lie. He's going to throw money and he's going to lie. The Medicare Social Security lie, this might be a first in history, and this is what I mean by this. Joe Biden, as we've talked about a lot on this show, is the biggest liar in the history of the presidency. And I say that again as somebody who knows that every president lies. Republicans, Democrats, they all lie all the time. I'm not naive, I know that. Joe Biden tells these huge lies, easily verifiable lies, and he'll not only say them, he'll say them over and over again. Like, yeah, that's good. His own staffers have come to him and said, hey, can you stop saying that people couldn't own a cannon when the Second Amendment was ratified? Because that's not true, and that's very easy to verify. Could you stop saying it? But he won't. He just keeps going because he's a complete sociopath. And so last night was interesting to me because Joe Biden told a huge lie about Medicare and Social Security, and even he seemed a little uncomfortable saying it.
Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means Congress doesn't vote. Well, I'm glad to see you. No, I tell you, I enjoy conversion. You know, it means if Congress doesn't keep the programs the way they are, they'd go away. Other Republicans say, I'm not saying it's a majority of you. I don't even think it's even a significant, but it's being proposed by individuals. I'm not politely not naming them, but it's being proposed by some of you. Look, folks.
Weird, right? And I did see some hand-wringing today about Republican conduct during the State of the Union. Oh my goodness, why were they so mean? Why aren't they respectful? This is what it is now. This is what our country is now, and I, for one, am here for it. Democrats want to behave like tiny children. Nancy Pelosi ripping up the State of the Union, all of them screaming and yelling, wearing white, the whole thing. You remember all these things when Donald Trump was president. Don't expect decorum now from the new right. The low-T GOP would have got there and sat on their hands and, well, we have to respect the office of the presidency. Those days are gone. You want to act like little children, you get treated like little children. Let's play these games. And look, Joe wasn't doing well mentally. Does Joe have dementia? I don't know. Is it Alzheimer's? Is he just senile? I don't know. I haven't diagnosed him. I don't know that anybody has, nor am I qualified to do so. But I'm also somebody with eyes and ears. Joe Biden is not fit to be president of the United States of America. He's not mentally fit. And that has nothing to do with his politics. He can't do the job. We're on the precipice of potential World War III. China, maybe Russia. The commander-in-chief can't do the job. He can't do it. And so what do on these nights? Well, they do something to him, whatever that may be, to get him geared up because he has to speak for an hour after dark, and we all know he's been sundowning by then. So what happens is Joe gets all hopped up on something, and it messes him up because his mind doesn't work that well anyway. But then he starts slurring his words and forgetting where he was, and well, here he is.
And congratulations to Chuck Schumer, another term as Senate Minority Leader. If you try anything to raise the cost of precision jobs, I will veto it. Raise the cost of precision jobs, I will veto it. Let's commit ourselves to make the words of Tyler's mom true. Car prices went up, people got laid off, so did everything from refrigerators to cell phones. The United States of America, 13th in the world in infrastructure, modern infrastructure.
All right? And beyond the speech, I know I'm not supposed to make a big deal out of this. I'm not supposed to talk about it, but I'm sorry. Anyone who's worked around or been around or done any volunteer work or anything with people who are struggling with things like dementia and Alzheimer's, they know that walk. Mr. Producer, if you don't mind, would you play that again a couple times for me just so everyone can see it? I know it's just a little 5-second video. Look at how that human being walks. You know that gait. If you know, you know. You nurses who work around these people, you know that gait. Joe Biden has something significant wrong with his mind. It's actually sad. I'm really not making fun of him for it. It's sad. It's a terrible thing. It's probably visited your family in one way or another, God forbid, but it probably has. But he can't be president of the United States of America.